This comes from the Black Chronicle. California moves to create Genealogy Office for reparations eligibility. So this is an interesting step forward. But reparations, what does it look like? The California Senate Judiciary Committee approved the bill that would create a new state agency for implementing the state's reparations task force recommendations and determine which individuals qualify as descendants of American slaves. SB 1403, authored by State Senator Stephen Bradford, Democrat from Gardena, would establish the California American Freedmen Affairs Agency. The bill would direct CAFA to implement suggestions from the state's reparations task force, a body created by the state legislature, which recommended that eligible Black residents of California could be owed up to $1.2 million, according to Cal Matters. That's a very interesting thing. So this office essentially is a kind of a mock Freedmen's Bureau. Now, I'm going to tell you something, right? Stephen Bradford being involved, that makes me very concerned. That makes me very concerned. Him being involved makes me very concerned. I'm going to leave out my opinions of Stephen Bradford because that has nothing to do with the video inherently. But I will say, it must be said, Stephen Bradford should not be trusted around issues of reparations. Period. Point blank. If you don't understand why, go look up some of his past statements, some of the things that he says, some of the selling out that he does. Chief among the task force's recommendations was the creation of CAFA as a cabinet-level agency to implement any of the task force's recommendations that are enacted by the state's legislature and signed by the governor. CAFA would also create a genealogy office charged with developing a process for determining and assist with determining individuals' eligibility for descendant status. After passing the Judiciary Committee, the bill kept its provision defining descendant as including descendants of a free Black person living in the U.S. prior to the end of the 19th century, but amended its section that had included African American descendants of chattel slavery of a chattel enslaved person living in the U.S. to now more widely include descendants of an African American chattel enslaved person in the U.S. So it's a little bit more wider. That concerns me too. But let's read on. According to analysis shared by the National African American Reparations Commission, lineage-based reparations programs such as these could result in white Americans becoming the majority of those qualified for reparations. That makes no sense. That makes no sense. If you are an African American, which is, I don't like the term African American because you're almost making us like an immigrant. We're not immigrants. We've been here for centuries. But even then, if it says the requirement is an African American person, then you're referring to a Black person. But African American, that term, I don't like that term because even Elon Musk claimed to be an African American. That's why terms like freedmen, Black Descendant of American slaves, foundational Black American, you have several terms out there. But you have to understand that terms like this, like African American, are very dangerous. This is why you don't meet a whole lot of Black people calling themselves African Americans these days. You know, you'll just say Black. You'll just say FBA or freedman. You find that a lot online these days. You know, you don't really find the opposite because a lot of us have awakened to our lineage. A lot of us have learned a lot about American history, and we want to celebrate that by having our own separate lineage. Now, this really concerns me because terms like African American being put in there, see that does make it a little iffy. And then on top of that, Stephen Bradford's involvement, and then the National African American Reparations Commission, which stands for NARC, and then Cobra, whenever they get involved in the whole mix, that worries me too. That worries me too, right? It really, really does. It really, really does. And I'm happy to see that an office is going to be created, but I'm wondering how has it already been sabotaged? Because if Stephen Bradford is involved and NARC is already talking about it, and you even got Michael Harriot involved, that seriously worries me. That seriously worries me.